August 2022. We've had about 6 weeks of 90 degrees Fahrenheit, over 90 degree Fahrenheit, and over 30 degrees Celsius days with no rain. I haven't wanted to be outside. It's been terrible, but we'll just do a quick garden tour. Here's some cucumbers that I just planted, I don't know, 3 weeks ago maybe. It hasn't started producing yet, and a few mustards down there. My tomatoes, most of these I grew from shoots off of my indeterminate tomato plant, so that means, just give an example, when you have something like this coming up in the center, I would wait for it to be a bit longer, and then I would break it off, stick it in the dirt, and it would produce roots. And probably 3/4 of these tomatoes along this edge of my garden came from shoots. So it's a great way to get mature plants quickly. Here are my storage number 4 cabbage. I harvested all my pixie, which was in there, which is a smaller variety, yesterday. I have some cauliflower, which I have never had any luck with yet growing. And some broccoli. I've harvested most of the heads of my broccoli, and I'm just waiting for side shoots. And this one looks like I missed, and it's starting to go to flower. I replanted some bush beans because deer and beetles and possibly slugs have decimated my other bush beans, and I transplanted some green onions from my main garden. Here I have some marigolds that I tried to direct seed some tomatoes to grow in the center. A determinate plant. They didn't come up, so I have some seedlings growing in pots. And this is my herb garden. Mostly it's being overtaken by basil, but I got some lemon balm, rosemary, and thyme along here, and this is summer savory. But the rest of this is different varieties of basil. This is my second main garden. This was its first year, and I had potatoes and beans growing in it, and both of them did absolutely wretched. Jareth and I just harvested the potatoes, and they were mostly bug chewed. I don't know what was chewing them up, but I literally couldn't put them in the basement for storage, and they were mostly really, really small, like size of golf ball or smaller. And so I canned them, and it took forever because it was peeling hundreds of teeny tiny little potatoes. And you can see my bean plants, they're just awful, and they've not produced very much. So I have seeded, as in the places where the potatoes were, more beans. And I ran out of bean seeds, and I'm not going to buy any more this year. And so over here I have carrots, parsnips, and beets. And we'll see what they do. This is my winter squash trellis, and I have taken some spaghetti squash off of here already. We have some more that are growing and maturing. I buy a small variety because it's just me that likes them, so I don't need great big spaghetti squash. And I have a lot of acorn squash growing in here, and I wish that I had known that acorn squash does not sit on a shelf as long as butternut, because I have butternut growing in a different area, and I guess it lasts like 4 to 6 months in storage, and it's doing pathetic. And I have all of these acorn squash that are doing fantastic, but only last 2 to 3 months on a shelf. And then I have a few cucumber plants here, not doing so well, getting eaten by cucumber beetles and stuff, but oh well. And then I have a lot of zinnias and marigolds for pretty factor and bringing in pollinators, like that butterfly, if that's in my viewfinder. Okay, so this is my main garden, compost. Here I replanted some beans. Well, I didn't replant them. There was summer squash here, zucchini there, and they got eaten alive by squash vine borers and squash bugs. So I threw them in the compost bin, and one of the plants must have landed on the dirt there, because I have 2 plants there, I think. And I think one is a, oh shoot, I can't see the fruit now. Oh yeah. So it's a summer squash, and I think this one is a zucchini. So they just kind of fall on the ground and reseeded. Actually, behind my trellis winter squash, I had some unwanted summer squash and zucchini growing in there, and it was taking over my garden, so I hacked it all down and then threw it on the grass, and it reseeded. Okay, so this is, today I just harvested all my onions. They did not do well. They're mostly slightly bigger than a golf ball. I don't know. This is probably the average size. Not very good. I'm not very good at growing onions. Over here is my bell peppers, and they're doing reasonably well. I just harvested some today. These ones are really big, but most of them are not that big. This is where my onions were, and I have today gone in here, mended the soil, brought in a lot of compost, and reseeded it to rutabaga, purple top tomato, and beets. This is brassicas. Well, this is sage right here. That's a perennial. This is my brassicas, and they're just being decimated by cabbage caterpillars, and so I've sprayed them with BT today. I've harvested the head off of most of my broccoli. I think this is my only one I haven't harvested yet. And then these broccolis are coming in with side shoots. This is I think this is a cauliflower that's coming off the rootstock from my failed overwintering cauliflower, because I didn't plant any of those that I remember anyway. And then this is my more cabbage, and it's being eaten, you can see by the cabbage worm, and so I have sprayed that. This is my tomato paste tunnel, and this has been a source of a tremendous amount of grief. I really helped to get a lot of tomatoes for canning, and squirrels, chipmunks, and birds are taking all of my harvest. Over here, this is my Amish paste tomatoes, and that is dying. I think from overwatering with the sprinkler. Not overwatering as in too much, but because I started using an overhead sprinkler to try to give them enough water. Our hot humid climate is great for fungal diseases, and I think it's caused a fungal disease, and the lower branches are all turning yellow, brown, and dying, and it just keeps making its way up. So I don't know how much longer these plants are going to be alive. My San Maranzo is a smaller paste tomato with more tomatoes per truss, and so far they're doing okay as far as disease. This, I don't know if you can see this, I have bird netting here to keep the birds out, and I've already opened this in advance because I have to fight to get in here. This is my hot potato row, not potato, pepper, and they're doing phenomenal. I don't know why nothing is grown in this area before so well, but these really like it. So we got, this is jalapeno, more jalapenos, and I have all these hot peppers and no tomatoes to make salsa with, so that's fun. This is another one of those. This is my Amish tomato that I just broke a shoot off of and stuck in the dirt, and that's how big it's gotten. It's over 5 feet tall. My fencing is 5 feet and sticking above. This is serrano peppers, and they're absolutely loaded. Yeah, I don't know if you can see in there. I got so many hot peppers, it's not even funny. Look at all those blooms that are gonna produce more. This is hopefully gonna be a fun one. It's called Sugar Rush Peach, and they're supposed to be a sweet, spicy hot pepper. So we'll see what those taste like. I have no idea. I just thought they sounded cool. It's another one of those. This is Rob's ghost pepper. He wants to make sauce out of it or something. I don't know. He really likes spicy stuff. And then this is the habanero. It's just recently gone to bloom and is putting out a lot of peppers. I have a spaghetti squash plant behind there. This was a ground cherry, which is kind of like a teeny tiny husk, and there's a little tiny berry inside. These are not ripe yet. I have gotten no ripe ones because the chipmunk or squirrel keeps stealing them all. So those would have been great, but I don't get to harvest any. These are more paste tomatoes. That's a pink fang, I think is what it's called, and it doesn't look very healthy anymore. These are banana peppers, and they're doing pretty well, I guess. I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. Maybe pickle them. And then some more bell peppers. Okay, get out. Bird netting. This is where I have my chard. My Swiss chard. And those are some, well, that's a marigold, and it's massive. These are supposed to be dwarf marigolds, and they're huge. This is parsnips. And these are green onions that I literally left out all winter without cover, protection, nothing, and they just came back. They're a green onion, bunching onion, they don't bulb. I picked a 6-pound, 9-ounce melon today, my very first melon I've ever grown, and it was huge. And I got a couple more there. I'm going to have to figure out how to keep them on there because this little tiny trellis is going to bust under the weight of them. This is where I have my chard, different varieties of chard. I have red Russian. This is like a dinosaur kale, and that's a red scarlet kale, and more marigolds. This is my carrots. They haven't done so hot. Oh, this has been a huge disappointment. I had 13 or 14 determinate tomato plants here, hoping for a quick first harvest. And they've reached about the end of their life. They've produced the number of tomatoes that they're going to produce. They're dying, and I've gotten none because of all of the greedy rodents that we have here. Even with the insect netting, I even found a squirrel inside the netting. He was stuck, and then he fought himself out. So here's some more cucumber. Not healthy. This is the bad area of my garden. The soil's terrible. And so I'm not really surprised about the cucumber looking like that. This is my cherry tomato tunnel, and I have a few slicers on this end, and it is doing awful. They're not as healthy as they should be. I thought I brought in enough compost to create a good soil environment, and I don't think I did. And with the squirrels and the chipmunks, I don't get hardly anything off of them. But they're just not as healthy as they were in the location I had them planted in last year. And that's also reflected in the flowers. Like, these are the same dwarf marigolds that I have everywhere else, and they're way smaller. So it's just not, they're just not happy here. Again, in the same sort of story, my beans are doing awful. They're diseased, and my potatoes are doing bad that I had planted under here, but I didn't have high hopes for them. They were just extra seed potatoes I had, and I just stuck them there. But I was really hoping these beans would do well, and they've mostly died, been eaten by rabbits as a seedling, and I don't know if I'm going to get anything off of them because even tall plants are turning brown and completely dying, so we'll see. This was my potato patch, and I did harvest all of them out of here, and they did much better than last year. These are new seedlings that I planted out of more seed potatoes that I had sitting at the back of my fridge that I found in a paper bag, and I was like, oh well, I got these potatoes and I'll just throw them in the ground and see what they do. So that's just a little bonus. And that is just about it for my main garden. Over on this side, I have some asparagus that did come up earlier, and then the rabbit chewed them all down to the ground, and I thought, darn it, I don't have any more asparagus, but then they came back up. So I'm happy about that. and some feverfew flowers, and some beans that again are reflective of the poorer soil. They did not do well at all here. And then these were supposed to be some of those miniature baby corns, and they were supposed to be ready in 42 days, and like after 65 they had done nothing, and so I just left them to see what they would do, and now they are earing up, and I'm just going to leave them for seeds because now they're too big for baby corn. And oh, here is I had beets here, and I've resowed for beets. And I have like a spontaneous, I did not plant that brassica, that's a broccoli that I just harvested the head off today. That actually is coming up from my winter sown rootstock that I left in the ground. This is an acorn squash, self-seeded, just must have been on the compost. I don't know what's with this yellowing of leaves, if that's just from too much water now or what. I fertilized, that's what all that crap on there is. And these are a sprouting cauliflower. They don't produce a main head, they produce several small shoots of cauliflower. And then this great big plant is a purple sprouting broccoli that came up from the rootstock of my overwintered stuff. So I don't know if I'll get anything out of that. I'm just experimenting to see. This was my flower. It's supposed to be my perennial flower bed that I was trying to grow, but my seedlings that I tried to start did terrible, so most of these are annuals. I do have a few perennials I think coming up, but this is just a mess. I'm going to probably till it under. This is my survival of the fittest squash garden. I literally just loosened the soil where I planted seeds, and I pretty much neglect this area of the garden because I don't have time to look after everything. So it gets occasionally watered with the sprinkler, and if I'm to walking through and I see squash bug eggs on leaves, I'll pick those off. But the condition of these plants is reflective of the care that they receive. Like these butternut squash there, those are about the size of my hand and they look to be mature. I don't think they're going to get any bigger. And most of these are not producing any fruit at all. Most of them are only producing male flowers. I did notice, and this is for Lisa if she's actually watching this video, because she really wanted me to have pumpkins. I saw one pumpkin today, right there. And there's no guarantee that this flower has been fertilized, so this little pumpkin might just rot and fall off. But this is the only pumpkin I've gotten out of the 2 hills of pumpkins that I planted. And you can see how much they've vined out. And then this one was also a pumpkin. And it is doing pitiful. But yeah, that is my garden tour.